Happy Friday, everyone. Happy Friday. We're just giving it a moment or two for our community to get settled in. We have people that are continuing to join right now. And I want to be the first to welcome you to Intentional Conversations podcast. I am Dr. Nika White. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am delighted to be in community with each of you today. And on behalf of NWC, we've been expecting you, and we do have a great show that's lined up for you today. Cannot wait for you to meet our guest co-host, and we'll get to officially introducing her momentarily. If you would, go to the chat. Let us know where you're joining the conversation from. We always love to see where people are visiting from as they join this community, as we learn with and from each other. And I also want to take this opportunity to say Happy Hanukkah to those who celebrate. And we are so excited to have you here with us today and have been expecting you. Cameras are always encouraged, but they're never required. It's a great way for us to get proximate to each other in this virtual learning environment. But we know that many of you join just in an auditory capacity. Maybe you're multitasking and you're listening in to grab whatever kind of goodness and nuggets you can, whatever capacity in which you're here with us today. We are grateful and we appreciate your time. Also want to let you know that at NWC, we really value disability inclusion. So we do have closed caption that has been enabled for those who would benefit. I see you, Washington, D.C. Thank you, Tanya, for being here. We appreciate that. And we also have an audience that will join us today via LinkedIn Live. There are many people who, instead of registering and being a part of our Zoom community, they will catch us on LinkedIn Live. And we're grateful for that community as well. We do like to share that we believe at NWC, the experience is optimized when you are a part of the Zoom community. And so if you desire to hop on over to Zoom and join us in this capacity, then we're going to place the link into the comment section for the LinkedIn Live right now for those who desire to hop over. But if not, and you want to stay put, I assure you that you're going to have a good experience nonetheless. Okay, so if this is your first time joining Intentional Conversations podcast, just want to let you know that this is a platform where we intersect conversations of diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging with leadership and business. And today is going to be a great conversation, and I will not prolong us any further. Once again, welcome to Intentional Conversations podcast. Let the conversations begin indeed, and that is precisely what we are about to do. If you're just tuning in, want to say happy Friday, happy Hanukkah. I am Dr. Nika White, your host of Intentional Conversations podcast, which is brought to you by the NWC team. So special shout out to my colleagues who work tirelessly along with me every single week to bring a great virtual production to each of you. And so we're so delighted to be in community with all of you. So I've already said happy Hanukkah, also known as the Festival of Lights. But as the sun set yesterday evening, the joyful celebration of Hanukkah began. This 8-day Festival of Lights is a time honored tradition, rich in history and in meaning. This celebration includes gathering with loved ones to light the menorah, enjoying traditional foods, playing games, sharing stories, just being in fellowship. Hanukkah is a beautiful expression of resilience and faith. And so again, happy Hanukkah to all of those who celebrate. I also want to let you know that December 10th is Human Rights Day. So at NWC, we do find it appropriate to acknowledge the national recognitions and make sure that any topics that are related to diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging, or to sum it all up, humanity is something that should be top of mind for each of us. Just to let you know a little bit, this year is the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and it coincides with the 30th anniversary of the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. And so Human Rights Day illustrates and promotes the legacy and relevance of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. You can show your support for the continued relevance of human rights by attending a human rights event or donating to a charity that centers human rights. You can also talk to your coworkers, your managers, your neighbors, your friends and loved ones, and just make sure that they are aware also of this recognition and the part that they can play. NWC, we are a very much a human-centered approach organization and how we show up to this work. And so we are definitely celebrating December 10th, Human Rights Day. Okay, now this time of year, there's so many different faiths and religions and different ways in which people may be acknowledging the holidays, and some may not even recognize, any type of faith-based holiday that occurs during this time of year. But I just want to extend a happy holidays, healthy season to each of you and your loved ones from NWC. Now, if you're thinking about a gift idea that you want to provide to someone that's in your network, I would be remiss if I did not share that giving the gift of inclusion is a wonderful gift, right? And so you all are familiar with the fact that earlier this year, at the end of January, I released book number 3 in partnership with Forbes Books. It's called Inclusion Uncomplicated, a Transformative Guide to Simplify DEI. And I would love it if you would consider this as one of your gift-giving ideas to all of those in your network that you feel would gain value from this book. And if you want to gift me with something, then I would appreciate you going to Amazon if you haven't already and sharing a review of your book. We have over 100 reviews, and I am always delighted to hear what people are thinking and experiencing and learning as they are engaged in the content in the book. Now, I also want to remind you that we have a LinkedIn Learning course that I released actually June of this year, and it is all about individual accountability for equity and inclusion. We have over 14,000 learners in just a few short months, and I couldn't be more excited about the support from those who are taking advantage of this learning opportunity. I just wrapped up filming 2 additional courses that are going to release in Q1 of 2024. One is all about intersecting DEI and AI, artificial intelligence. And so that's a hot topic right now. You're definitely going to want to have that in your consideration set. And the other is all about leader accountability for equity and inclusion. So we went from individual accountability. So now it's about leader and organizational accountability for equity and inclusion. I hope that you will partake of those learning experiences and share it out with others in your network. Now, this is our final intentional conversations for 2023. Let me say that very explicitly. For 2023, we will be back in January for more Intentional Conversations podcasts, where we have a great lineup of incredible co-hosts that I cannot wait for you to be in community with. We'll be back on January the 5th. And so we're taking the remaining Fridays of this month to really just prepare ourselves for the new year, to be with family and loved ones. And we hope that you all are going to return with us on January 5th, 2024. So if you join us next Friday, we won't be here, but we will look forward to seeing you in January. Now, a big question that we are pondering right now is, as we go into our 4th year of Intentional Conversations podcast, to Friday or not to Friday? That is the question for us. We have been hosting this since inception on Fridays at this window of time. But we do know that as our platform continues to grow, there are a number of people from many different geographies that will also partake. And so we don't know. Is Friday still the going day? Is 11, Eastern to 12 Eastern still the going time? So before we make a firm decision, and we won't make the shift without allowing, plenty of months to really seed the new news if we decide to make a change. But we do want to poll our audience. We want to hear from you. Many of you are repeat attendees. And so is Friday a good day or not? We're going to place a link to that poll into the chat. We've also been circulating it on social media and some of our other communication assets. But we want to hear from you. And we certainly will be taking all that information into consideration. So thank you for participating in our poll. To Friday or not to Friday? What do you think? Okay. Now, as I mentioned, we will be back in January. I just want to give you a sneak peek of some of the names of individuals that you can look forward to as we engage in intentional conversations. And so mark your calendars. We have some wonderful guest hosts that are lined up for January, and we look forward to having you be with us as well. Now, this is the part of the show where it gives me great privilege and honor to formally introduce our guest co-host. And if you've been with us, you know that I always like to read our guest co-host bio. It's important to me for you all to understand the accolades, credentials, the experiences in which our guest co-hosts show up to the conversation with. And today will be no different. And I'm excited because this is not a stranger to me at all. This is someone that I admire greatly and have been in relationship with for quite some time. We have history, y'all. And so it's probably going to feel like 2 girlfriends chatting it up today. And that does my heart such great joy. So welcome, Priscilla Wallace. Priscilla Wallace brings over 23 years of experience building, developing, and accelerating award-winning strategic supply chain programs for top Fortune 500 companies. She is a determined supply chain professional with experience working in financial institutions, food and beverage, and the nonprofit industry. She has spent most of her career establishing, revamping, and managing supplier diversity, DEI, and small business inclusion programs with Fortune 500 corporations and nonprofit organizations. She understands supply chains, community initiatives, and how to equip entrepreneurs to be successful when pursuing opportunities with corporations. Currently, she is a consultant, strategist, diversity expert, and founder of Diversity Exchange LLC. She continues to collaborate with top corporations, centers of excellence, universities, and entrepreneurs to promote diversity and advance the ecosystem for entrepreneurial growth. In her community, she continues to lead and teach women of faith groups and serves her church with her husband. She loves outreach and touching the lives in the community. Her pride and joy are her husband, her two children, Nehemiah, a senior in high school, and her daughter, Shayla, a sophomore, early college student. She has served as a corporate liaison with NMSDC, WeBank, Rainbow Push, National ACE, and regional certifying organizations. She served on numerous boards such as Enterprising Women, CVMSDC, the Conference Board, Tuck Executive Education School of Business, et cetera, et cetera. And so I want you to find those accolades, find those emojis, whatever it is, and help me to welcome our guest co-host today, Priscilla Wallace. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that she and I can be in spotlight together. So I'm going to add her right now. And Priscilla, my friend, I'm so glad to see you here today. Cannot wait to catch up. Can't wait for this community to also get to hear from you and know more about you. But one of the things that I felt to share with you, that I'm hoping I'm not catching you off guard, but it's tradition here, so we have to do it, right? We have to go out with a bang. And that is, now that I've read your bio, and I have shared your accolades and your credentials, what I will ask as you think about how you may want to greet this audience in your own way, what can you also share with us that we would not know from reading your bio or from going to your LinkedIn profile? So you got to think fast, my friend. And I'm sure there's lots of goodness that you can share with us. But welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Nika. It's always a pleasure to be in your company. And that one thing that I can share with the audience that is not on my bio, but if you were to ask my husband or anyone that know me, I'm a bad girl in the kitchen. I love cooking all day long. It never, ever get tired of cooking.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay. So for the partners out there that maybe are not, always in the kitchen and somebody's in earshot and they're hearing this, I mean, just slow your roll. We all have our different gifts, right? So
Love
anyway,
it.
I think that's wonderful. I think that's wonderful. That is awesome. And by the way, I do want to give honor where honor is due. I think I saw a Herb Wallace. And so could that be the Herb Wallace that's joining us in our community today?
That is the Herb
Fantastic.
Wallace.
Okay, fantastic. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I always love when partners kind of support each other. And so I think that's fantastic. Well, awesome. So we're going to jump right in because I don't want to delay another second having this audience to hear from you. But I just want to lead in with kind of understanding a little bit more about your pathway, your history. I mean, of course, we know all of the different sectors that you've worked in, but what led you to this body of work that you have been committed to for 20 plus years? What was the why factor for you?
The why factor for me, Nika, is legacy. What
Mm,
do I want to, whatever I'm doing now, whatever I've done over the last 23 years, it's all about impact. How am I leaving a legacy for my family, for my community, for even the people that I work with? And have being able to work in diversity, a girl from small town, Batesville, Mississippi, if it was not for some of the people that touched my life, mainly the mentors and then the sponsors, I would not have known how much needed this work was. So
mm,
that's what started me on my journey because I knew someday that if I got the opportunity, that
yeah.
I would try to be a problem solver, be a part of the solution and not the problem, help open doors of opportunities for
Mm,
diverse suppliers, for diversity to be talked about in the workplace. I was one of the early adopters of some of the supplier diversity initiatives, some of the strategy sessions that we had. And which brings to mind, you and I, you remember the accelerator? Just
Yes,
the
it's still going,
way,
by the way. Yes.
still going. So awesome.
Yes.
And just being able to, get businesses to be able to get opportunities from corporations right in the same marketplace. And so,
Yeah,
and that was
yeah,
where you and I met years ago,
absolutely.
and we had
Yes.
the same passion around that. And so my goal is to continue to do this work.
Yeah, no, I love that legacy. And I think that legacy is so important. And so, yeah, I want to dig a little bit into the
Sure.
story of how you and I connected because I think that
Sure.
it will be interesting for this community to hear. And so, when Priscilla just referenced the accelerator program, I was really, really green to supplier diversity. I was new to the work, and I had just been appointed the VP of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Greenville Chamber in South Carolina, one of the largest chambers in the upstate. And we really recognized that there was a need for intentionality to create these programs and initiatives to allow minority owned businesses to be able to grow and thrive and compete effectively in the marketplace. We knew the challenges. And specifically in Greenville County, we had the stats and the research showed that we had approximately 6,000 minority owned businesses. And when I'm talking minority, specifically, I'm meaning ethnic minority owned businesses. But on average, those businesses were growing or employing 2.5 individuals. And that number had remained the same for decades with an S, which meant those businesses weren't growing. So we needed to understand why. And so my friend Priscilla was already well vested in this work and she was much further along than I. And so somehow we connected and you were so supportive and really helping me to build that program in the upstate of South Carolina. And this has been years ago, y'all. And so
Yeah.
maybe like a year or two ago, the program reached 10 years, its 10-year anniversary that I started, which you helped me start in Greenville, South Carolina. And not to mention, in that 10th year, we were able to take the program across the state of South Carolina. So now there's one in the upstate, one in the Midlands, and one in the low country. And I have to say that, Priscilla, a lot of that has to do with how generous you were with being a resource to helping me learn the ropes. And so I'm so grateful. And I just wanted to leverage today's platform to be able to say that to you. So
Oh,
yeah,
thank
not only are
you.
you a baddie in the kitchen, but you're a baddie when it comes to this work of supplier diversity. And you're so committed to it. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. Thank
So
you.
let's talk about, again, you mentioned legacy before, and I think that part of having a legacy is being intentional with whatever it is we feel like we're destined and purpose to do. So let's talk about this word, being intentional and continuing to have meaningful, productive conversations. Why is that something that also you have invested a lot of time and energy to? And how does that show up for you within the spaces that you have influence in terms of, again, just these intentional conversations that may not always be easy to have, but they're necessary?
Great. Thank you for asking that question. I agree with you. It is not easy, but it is necessary. Because at the end of the day, we all want to live fulfilled lives. We want
Yeah.
to feel like we're making a difference. We want to live a life of purpose with specific goals that we want to achieve. And it all starts with being able to feel like you're making a difference with your conversations. We have to communicate, whether you're in your homes, whether you're in your job, whether you're just meeting someone. If you cannot communicate, then that creates opportunities of being misunderstood or misrepresented. And we've seen that happen in the workplace. We've seen that
Yes.
happen in our communities, in our churches, even just with our peers. And so it's important that we have those intentional conversations so we are allowed to be our true, authentic self, to show up for ourselves,
Hmm.
to feel like we belong, that we don't have to put on these filters, pretend to be something that we're not. And most importantly, for that self fulfillment. And now that the
Yeah.
doors have been opened for these DEI conversations, and when I say when you look back years ago, this was unheard of. It was always like you're knocking, trying to push the door down just to be heard, or you're having to take on these roles that you didn't want just so that you can get in a room, just so you can have a small voice. So now
Mm.
conversation of DE&I and more corporations adopting, having DEI professionals on staff and the constant diversity moments, the courageous conversations, things that are going on. You know, even though we still know that we got a ways to go, let's just be real about it. But it's
Yeah.
happening. And so we should
Yeah.
celebrate that as a win, but it is happening. It's creating job opportunities. Look on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. I've never seen this many postings for DEI professionals. More universities are adopting this approach. So it's making a difference. And why did all that happen? Because the conversation was intentional.
Yes, yes. So the message here is we got to keep talking, right? We can't get
Yeah,
weary in our well doing because it may feel exhausting, like nobody's listening, nothing's changing, but I guarantee you it is.
it is.
And so we have to keep talking. We have to be intentional about that.
Yeah.
Let's not get weary. I love the fact that you mentioned self-fulfillment, and it just reminds me that right now I'm working on a course, well, really a talk that I'm going to give
Mhm.
after the first of the year, and I bring to the conversation how at the individual level, there's some responsibility that we have, right, to help create the outcomes that we want to see, the change we want to see in the world. And I
Yeah.
was relating that to justice, and I think that really leaning into what can we do that's within our control to help ensure self-fulfillment is a form of justice that we can control in some ways.
Mhm.
And so I love that self-fulfillment has found its way to the conversation.
Yeah.
Now, one of the other ways, Priscilla, you and I have connected is around our faith. We both are believers. We both are Christians. We both carry that into everything that we do. It is the foundation for both of us. We've talked about that before. We've kind of shared stories around that. And as practitioners that are in this space, just like some of the other areas that we deem to be really significant part of our identity, it can create some tension points and a push or pull, not necessarily for us if we're really strongly steeped in our beliefs, but it
Mhm.
can for others who may question how in which we show up to this work, right? And some of the things that which we may see as worthy of advocating for and not advocating for. So I just want to have a real dialogue with you about how have you navigated being a woman of great faith and also being this practitioner? And what advice do you give to others that may also be grappling with how do I take something that's so much a part of who I am and make sure that it's not creating challenges and how in which I do the work of catering to all types of people and difference across so many different
Right.
dimensions of diversity.
Right. That's a good question. That's a hard question. If you were to, it's a hard question for a lot of people because that can become a battle. One of the things that my husband and I like to do every year is come up with a theme or a goal or what we aim to do or what we will put in place. And then we direct all of our actions, our events, whatever we do around that theme. And our theme for 2023, by the way, I'm very happy that I'm closing 2023 out with you. I'm your last speaker of the year.
Yes.
Now, that
Yeah.
is a faith move right there because so,
Love it.
our theme for 2023 has been keep the main thing.
The main thing. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so you can be in the workplace and you can be a woman, a man of faith. And what helps is knowing who and what you believe in. Is being centered. What has helped me has been my devotion, constantly having that encouragement, that empowerment of who I am, because it's so easy to get lost in the shuffle, in the hustle of trying to get ahead in corporate
Right.
America. And sometimes
Right.
you're in meetings and you hear conversations or you hear different type profanity type things that doesn't sit well with you. But you still got to get through the meeting. And so I always
Hmm.
look at it like this right here. I am to hate the sin or whatever action it may be, but I still have to love the person.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
and I believe that when I come into the room, I bring light into the room.
Hmm.
Because the Bible tells us that we are the salt of the earth, and if salt were to lose
Hmm.
its flavor, we are the flavor, and we can't
Hmm.
forget that. We're not to be people just amongst ourselves, but we need to be sometimes centered right where the activity is to kind of shift and make the difference.
Yeah.
And I've been in
Yeah.
several meetings, even done board presentations where, yeah, I go in there prayed up for myself, but also while I'm in that room, it gives me an opportunity to pray for others, to be the
Hmm.
soft-spoken voice, to be the voice of reasoning, to not be so judgmental or how should I say it, where it's got to be my way or the highway. And we got to
Yeah.
realize that you can still show up in a corporate place. You can still show up in a workplace, or you can still show up as an entrepreneur and be your true authentic self and hold on to your faith. But you have to make deposits. You have to
Yeah.
make deposits of getting refreshed, renewed. Have people around you that are encouraging you, that are speaking life into you, that are reminding you of who you are in Christ Jesus. Because as Nika said, we're both Christians. And that's so important to having that foundation because, people gonna come and they're gonna go. They're
Yeah.
always gonna have something to say, whether you're
Yeah.
doing something good or whether you're doing something bad. But you wanna know what really matters? Your peace matters. Your joy
Yes.
matters. Your
Yeah.
foundation matters. It matters because that's what
Yeah.
defines you. That's what makes you. That's what helps you
Yeah.
get through the hurdles of life.
Yeah. And for people that are really devoted to their faith and their religion, it is such an important part of their identity that in order to show up authentic, then it is natural for those values to enter into the conversation, to certainly be on display. And I share that to bring forth the relevance of if we are in a society to where many of us who are advocating for this work of belonging and inclusion and inequity, we have to allow people to show up whole, to show up fully authentic and who they are. And we can't separate portions of our identity in order to show up authentically, right? So we can't
Right.
separate, our race, our ethnicity, our religion, our faith. And I think that there is a lot of room for us to be more accepting of, even though if someone may not subscribe to that same faith or religion or belief,
Yeah.
that we don't allow people to feel like they have to shrink back portions of who they are. And so I think that's just a really important conversation for us to have. And here's kind of the connection point that became evident to me just yesterday, or earlier this week, rather, when we were doing the wrap up of a session for this group that had been through these series of DEIB learning experiences. And one gentleman, it was a young white professional male, and he said, at the end of the day, what I have learned from this experience goes back to my Christian roots. I grew up in the church and I grew up on Christian beliefs. So he says, when I'm hearing all of these constructs around respect, dignity, belonging, acceptance, trying to eliminate oppression, discrimination. He said, what it boils down to is just a sense of treating people with respect. And those are some fundamental values and principles that I think a lot of us can find some common ground in. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I do think that it certainly is a way that helps us to show up where we are taking a human-centered approach to this type of work.
Right. Right.
And I think that's
Exactly.
what's important. Yeah.
And
I often say
and
that
I'm sorry.
I was just going to quickly mention, Priscilla, that I often say that acceptance doesn't always mean agreement. And I think that's something also that we have to lean into. We can coexist without us having to have the same perspectives, beliefs.
Right.
And I think that's just important to highlight. Go ahead with your thought, please.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say that. I mean, bottom line, everyone wants to feel loved. Everyone wants to feel accepted as if though they belong. And I think that that has to be respected in the workplace or wherever you're at. I had this old saying, and I love stories. I'm from Mississippi, so one of the things that I have tons of little stories, but I was at this event one time, and it's a professional event. And I did not expect the speaker. The speaker asked this question. When people read your obituary,
Yeah.
they going to focus more on your accomplishments or more on how you made a difference in this world?
Yeah.
What would they
Legacy.
think about you? And and I'm like, at least say that she was a woman of faith.
Yes.
Because
Yes,
all these
exactly.
accomplishments, they'll come, they'll go. you remember you, yeah, when you walk across the stage and accept an award, but your walk matters. Are you talking the talk and walking the walk, or do you become someone else when you get in those corporate doors? And that's something that you have to be able to balance in order to
Mhm.
be able to answer that question. But just think about that. We spend more than 8 to 12 hours on our jobs,
Right.
in the workplace, trying to help a corporation or organization, our own personal business grow. But how much of that time do we really spend just meditating and getting our thoughts right, and
Yeah.
learning who we are and who the Bible says we are?
Mhm. Now, I want to shift a bit and I want to
Right.
talk about your prowess in the area of supplier diversity and economic inclusion. So, certainly,
Mhm.
you have had such a deep history of building strategies, seeing successful stories and outcomes. What would you say, Priscilla, are maybe those top 2 to 3 considerations that organizations and leaders who are advocates of supplier diversity and economic inclusion should know about that really is driving sustainable change for
Right.
those minority businesses?
I would say right now, for those in the space of supplier diversity and anyone still in supplier diversity, you one of my peers, I just have to give you a shout out and just say I encourage you. Don't feel like it's never going to get there. It will get there, but it needed someone like you in that chair to help it get there.
Mm,
Here, what we got to be ready for is the shift. And one of the things about supplier diversity, you always got to be thinking at least 3 to 5 steps ahead. Where's the industry going? What should I have my MBEs, my minority businesses, focused on now? Yes, it's great to report our spend, so that you can meet your metrics and show at the end of the day that you're making a difference. But what's most important also is making sure that we are actually having programs to help sustain the MBE community. By now,
right.
contracts, every contract, if you've been in supplier diversity over 5 to 7 years and you have a supply chain that is centered around making supplier diversity at its core, every contract should have some type of language that's including at least one or more diverse suppliers in the RFPs. So
Mm-hmm.
that's important. AI, which Nika mentioned earlier, that she had a course on DEI and AI and how it intersects. I recently just finished a strategy for a smart tech MBE seminar that was hosted by Howard University Supply Chain.
Nice.
And it was mainly about MBEs and students learning about smart manufacturing, AI, technology, because that is our future. You
Right.
need to get suppliers involved in understanding where they're at with smart technology. In fact, we got another conference that we'll be hosting in 2024 that I'll be sharing out there on LinkedIn. ESG. Have your suppliers completed their assessments? How are they rating? Are we moving them in directions where we're helping? And when I say helping, and are we sponsoring suppliers to
Right.
get ESG ready? That is so
Mm-hmm.
important. So we can't just think about just diverse suppliers getting an opportunity. We have to own the part of making sure that they are successful with what they need for those opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, for the benefit of this larger community, can you tell us what it means to be ESG ready for those who aren't familiar with ESG?
Sure, sure. For those who's not, it's environmental social governance. That's the acronym. And basically, it's being able to look at how suppliers, because corporations right now, their focus is on how are we reducing our carbon footprint?
Yep.
How are we looking at our greenhouse gas emissions? How are we creating a cleaner world, a cleaner earth? So that
Mm,
applies to our suppliers because just as the corporations are evolving, our suppliers have to be evolving.
right.
How are they implementing that within their place of businesses? How
Yeah.
are we? It could be as simple as when you fly on an airplane. Are you sitting in coach? Are you sitting in first class? How many emitters are going out at that time? So it's just a number of things that suppliers need to be ready for and show themselves up strong for, because that will end up being part of identifying whether or not you're included in supply chain opportunities.
Absolutely. And we know that there's already a challenge where we're trying to increase the number of minority businesses that are included into the supply chain. And
Yeah.
so this could be yet another hurdle or obstacle that can keep them out. And so I love the fact that you are promoting the education of this for those suppliers. And it's going to take us, continuing to beat this drum, if you will, because if not, we're going to just identify that yet another challenge that does not allow those businesses to compete effectively in the marketplace. And so, are there any specific strategies that now you are crusading for as you're talking to the minority business owners themselves? It's one thing to talk about the corporations and the organizations, but what about the minority businesses? What are like the top couple strategies that you're giving to them?
I love talking to you. We can go all day with this. So my strategy is that, and I'm also a CEO coach for a company called Connect Up. My strategy is that I'm working with suppliers on right now. Is really to keep it simple. Is how you show up.
Yeah.
It's how you
Yeah.
show up, and making sure that you have targeted customers. And one of the strategies I say every year, even for myself with Diversity Exchange LLC, is to target 3 to 5 customers and stay with the 3 to 5 customers. Understand how they do business, understand what they're looking for, and understand how you can be the solution for their problems. Now,
Yeah.
that may seem like a large scale, a large thing to unravel or to unpack, but that's number one. And I think the issue is we have so many suppliers trying to be all things to all people that you really don't get to be your best in just
Hmm.
in one area. And to compete for these contracts is harder and harder and harder. Another strategy is that I'm working with suppliers is I had a supplier reach out to me yesterday, and she's probably listening right now, is if there's an opportunity to integrate DEI in your workplace, do so.
Yeah.
It starts with us. We can't say everyone else out there create or change your organization and not willing to change our own organization.
So true.
Diversify your boards. Connect with advisors that are diverse. It's another thing to do. And also, lastly, which I just mentioned, smart technology. I know those file cabinets are full, and I know they work for you for a number of years, but somehow you need to move to saving your
Right.
information in the cloud
Right.
and
Right.
learn how this works, because the RP processes are changing for corporations, and they're looking for suppliers to evolve just as the corporations are.
Yeah, really great tips. Do not be afraid of tech. We have to get ourselves comfortable with it because it is definitely the way, and it's going to be a separator. I also love the fact that you mentioned that oftentimes it's these historically underrepresented, or I like to say underestimated businesses that are left out of the supply chain, right?
Yeah.
And so once we are being intentional about creating these opportunities through these systems and these special programs and these special policies, it is important for those businesses as well, those minority owned businesses, to also make sure that they are paying it forward by either connecting with other businesses that maybe are emerging and aren't quite yet at the level that they are, and reaching back as they climb, sharing how they were able to get to that place. I know that one of the benefits that has been really instrumental for me and my entrepreneur journey is connecting through brain trust groups and other mastermind groups of women of color that are practitioners and founders in this same space. We can't feel like we have to keep all of our intel so close to the chest and gatekeep it to where we don't also help to protect the full truth, which is being willing to kind of share those lessons learned and pull others up. And one other point that I'll make is I think that what you are sharing as you're talking about the importance of supplier diversity and economic inclusion, it goes back to this big debate and conversation of where should the DEI work and leadership exist within an organization? Should it fall under HR only? Well, let's face it, if it falls under HR only, then what we're talking about today, this whole hour-long conversation, is kind of null and void, and it's not even existent. So that's the reason why I also advocate for the leadership within DEI to have a holistic approach where it's touching all areas of operations and not just housed under HR only. So I'm going to go to now an audience question. And by the way, you are getting some love into the chat, Priscilla. So Tanya Penny Woods is thanking you for supporting the Smart MBA seminar that was hosted by Howard University Supply Chain Center, which you referenced earlier. She says that your leadership was key to the success. And so you are definitely making a difference. I'm going to take this question that's coming in from one of our audience members. But what I want to share with the rest of you is that after this question, it is your turn. So if you have a question or curiosities that you're holding, or maybe just a comment or contribution you want to make to the discussion, I'll give you a chance to present that momentarily. If you're part of the Zoom community, you can let us know that you're willing to share by using the raise hand feature, and I will invite you to be added to our spotlight and unmute yourself. Or if you just want to share your questions into the comment section, the chat area, we're happy to take those that way. If you're part of the LinkedIn Live, go to the comment section. We're bringing those conversations and those comments and questions over into our community here. And so we want to hear from you as well. So here's the question. This question comes from Hannah. How might the recent affirmative action decision impact supplier diversity initiatives? Great question. How can individuals and organizations alike continue to push the initiatives forward and support these communities in the midst of this political climate? So yes, we do know that the affirmative action decision is not only impacting, enrollment in different higher learning institutions, but it's also impacting other federal programs where, minorities have been identified as a way to prioritize opportunity for them. And so I wanted to add that context there. But what would you say to that question, Priscilla? Big topic.
I say this to that topic. I think that first of all, we have to unpack that a little bit and identify within our diverse community. There's so much we can do together, and Nika, you kind of touched on that. Sometimes we don't collaborate, we don't partner well together, join together, and I think that here we're gonna have to with supplier diversity professionals and educating and getting suppliers opportunities, that we're going to have to do more collaboration to help combat as a united whole to some of the affirmative action issues that are going on right now. We know there's a need, which is why I said businesses, they have to scale up. They
Right.
have to scale up to become more compatible, to become more competitive, to show up, and be a part of these political changes. We can't sit back on the sideways and just wait and
Absolutely.
let things go and just talk about it in the news, but we need to be a part of the conversation, a part of the
Mhm.
dialogue, collaborating together, being a part of the difference.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I know that there is a lot of conversations that are happening right now, particularly with the case that's already out there,
Mhm.
where there's a Black female founder that her program, and the name escapes me now. Someone probably in this community can search it quickly and place it into the chat. But I heard a story this morning where she went live on social media, and she was talking about how this impacts everything. They're using her program as a way to set the precedent for all other programs. And so her point was, if you aren't paying attention to this, or you think that it's not impacting you, then you need to think again, because it is. This is what they're using as the example to really make some firm decisions about the lack of support through affirmative action for a lot of those programs that really help to minority businesses to be able to scale and grow and build capacity. So pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah, and
Okay.
one of the things that I want to just add to that, and because I have a rich history in supplier diversity, it's all about telling your story. So when these type
Yeah.
things comes up, and it's good to report out metrics at the end of the year, but also are you reporting out how you awarded contracts to certain diverse suppliers, how they made an impact in the
Right.
community, how they created more jobs, how they had different community initiatives, outreaches, et cetera. That's the problem. We stop with just the contract. But when you come back, it's almost like you gotta be your own attorney, lawyer, and judge.
You do.
And I
You
you
do.
do, because you have to
Yeah.
show how your work is making a difference, how it is
Right.
making impact, the value proposition behind what you're doing. So when these things comes up, that we can justify it with our work.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Storytelling is such a powerful tool. And, I think that we gravitate so quickly towards the quantitative, the numbers, and the numbers are important as well, but let's not underestimate the value of the qualitative data. So,
Yeah.
document those stories, present those case studies, and let's over communicate on this topic so people can really see the full value of, well, what these efforts mean when these businesses are able to thrive. And research even shows that when minority businesses are thriving and they're creating jobs, that there's greater propensity that they're hiring people from those communities. And so, lots of reasons why we all need to care, not just those of us who are part of those communities, but all of us need to care about that.
Yeah.
Um, so I want to shift a little bit here, and then you talk a lot about decluttering, right? That's something that's part of your platform. It's something that's really important to you. And so tell us what that's all about, and why is that something of value that maybe others need to have in their consideration set as well?
I'm actually teaching a women's group at my church on decluttering. You should have seen their faces when I started talking about it. They're like, oh, maybe I need to clean out my closet. Maybe I need to clean out my garage. But,
Yeah. Mm.
when you think about decluttering, one of the most challenging steps to decluttering is deciding what needs to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the questions that I ask myself and that I challenge, those that are listening, are the items in my current lifestyle or my activities within my current lifestyle, are they reflecting the season that I am in?
Mm.
And it
Yeah.
goes back to, since you said we faith-based today, it goes
Mhm.
back to Ecclesiastes 3, that there's a time and a season for
Yes.
everything.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
so, when you think about decluttering, if we look at it from a faith base, what are we doing? What is taking up access to our soul? What is
Mhm.
keeping us so
Mhm.
weighed and bogged down and stressed out that we're not feeling whole, that we're not feeling that we're centered, that we have a foundation to kind of have our mind all over the place? From a family base, I would say just remember, you choose to allow what comes into your home. You
Yeah.
choose to, you can allow what type of peace you're gonna have in your home. It's gonna be constant chaos. And a lot of us work remotely. A lot of us try to manage home and work in a job, but sometimes we end up giving a job 12 to 15 hours and have very little to give to our spouse, our kids, or our family. So, and even our thought process, yeah, we're at the dinner table, but your mind is on your next. So just being
Yes.
able to be present and live in the now. From a work base, when on and best example I can give is myself, just my
Mhm.
decluttering journey. I had to face the fact I own several pair of shoes, nice fancy dresses, and specific activities that right now that I'm not participating in, even though those activities represented a season of my life and I have a lot of great memories, but those activities no longer reflect the season that I'm in.
That
So
you're
when I
currently in.
think about decluttering, what are we willing to let go? Even in the workplace, you go through seasons. There was a
Mhm.
season
Mhm.
where we had to manually print everything. Now, some of us been in a space where it struggle with that because it goes in the cloud and we don't know how to do that.
Right.
So even in your roles, some people are sitting in roles every day just unhappy and miserable, but they're in that role for a paycheck versus enjoying the job. What do
Yeah.
you need to declutter? Life is
Mhm.
short. We get one chance at it. So, my
Yeah.
question back to you, are your activities that you're doing, are the items or things that you're have in your closet or whatever it may be, does it represent the season that you're in right now?
I love that. I love that. Yeah, and we all evolve. So you're giving us some tools to self-actualize really what we want for ourselves by thinking on that very specific question. And what I love about it is that especially this time of year when we think about the holidays and how many
Holidays.
people are grieving loved ones and how, the stress of trying to wrap up end of year goals and maybe not meeting those goals, all the things. The anxiety is really high. There's a real thing called seasonal depression, and many people experience it this time time of year for all the reasons that I
Right.
named and more. And so I love that you're bringing this whole phenomenon of decluttering and the importance of it almost as a way for self-care and well-being, because it does make us whole. It does make us feel a bit more centered and grounded when we are only consuming the things in our spaces, in our minds and our psyche and our bodies and our souls that are good for us. And I think that's certainly a great takeaway. I noticed that over the course of, I don't know, just the past few weeks, that I've had this influx of all of this spam communication to my work email, and I'm like, I've been protecting it for years. I don't understand how this happened all of a sudden. Then I started thinking back, and I was like, oh, I slipped, right? I got lazy, and so instead of using like my Gmail for responding to something, I use my work email, and now the floodgates have opened, and it's just like this influx. And so and usually what I do is just delete, delete, delete. And I'm like, why am I not getting to the root cause of it, which was to declutter, which meant that I had to go in, look at each one of those and unsubscribe from the things that were not serving me well. And it's been liberating to do that. Every time I'm able to do unsubscribe, it's been, really, really liberating. And so that is a part of self-care. That is a part of well-being. And I think that we have a responsibility to ourselves to make sure we're being very radical about that and not accepting any apologies for taking care of self. Yeah.
Exactly.
So yes, I want to, extend that question to this audience. If there's some ways in which you feel like you can declutter, whether it's your personal life, your work life, what is that? And how do you plan to do that? Go to the chat and kind of share a little bit of that with us. Okay, so I'm looking to see if there are any hands raised and checking the chat to see if there are any questions that have come forth. Again, you do have an opportunity to engage if you so desire. You can use the raise hand feature, or you can also just go to the chat. And so I'm not seeing any hands raised immediately. So while folks are still percolating, I'm going to go to my next question for you, because of course we're going to maximize every bit of time that we have, Priscilla, every bit of time.
That's
Um,
fine.
so one of the other things you talk about while we're on this wave of you inspiring us is, your next life and getting ready for your next, for your next in life. And so, and you actually just referenced that, or you were talking about the declutter sentiments. But what is it like to get ready for your next in life? What does that mean, and what does that look like?
So what that looks like for me right now, and I'm still figuring out as I go. But one thing
Mhm.
I do know for sure is that I have more years behind me than what's in front of me. So every day matters to me. And part of my Nexus life is just being more cognizant of my time, of my energy, and what I allow to impact me in my space.
Yeah.
Whether it's from a professional, mental, or spiritual perspective, time matters. Right now, in my bio, you mentioned I have a son, a 6'3" son at that, that's
Oh.
getting ready to go out to college. And one of the things in my career that I said earlier, I want to make sure that I have more time at home with my kids when they become teenagers and
Mhm.
help them with their course in life. And so my
Yeah.
son will be graduating in May, and then I have a daughter that looks and acts just like me. She's in early college. She's a sophomore, so she's going through her teenage years, and I get to do life with them now. I get to do life with my husband now. I'll continue to consult, continue to strategize, and continue to do the great work that I love. But my next is making sure that I keep the
The
main thing,
main thing. To
and
keep the main thing the main thing.
and just, get back, I'm doing my devotions, spending more time with great leaders. I mean, really great, authentic leaders. One of them is part of this. Um, I think she's online now, Professor Tanya Penny Woods,
Yeah,
with Howard
she is.
University and
Yes.
several other corporations that I've been collaborating with, spending time with them, helping them strategize on how to continue to move the work of diversity forward, whether at a university or corporate level. So I continue that great work, and I hope to continue to be able to be a resource for those that are in supplier diversity and continue to share that wealth of knowledge that I have.
Yeah, I love that. So you referenced, a client, and yes, Tanya Penny Woods is part of this community today. So thank you for being here, Tanya. But what I'm interested in is for you to share with this community a bit more about your business and the type of support services. I know we've talked about it at a high level in addressing your bio, but if you had to narrow down maybe your 2 to 3 primary categories of solutions or service offerings, what would they be specifically?
I'm sure I would love to. So one of my 2 to 3, she said, keep it at 2 to 3. You're right. Is helping organizations navigate supply chain hurdles, and
Okay.
that's
Yep.
often a challenge with suppliers that are seeking to do business with corporations, is that they don't really understand supply chain. They see an
Right.
RFP, but don't really understand how it flows or how it works. And so I help entrepreneurs with supplier development, understand how to collaborate and partner with supply chains when responding to RFPs, proposals, and just being able to even just walk in the room to help them to interpret, what is being communicated and how they business fit into the supply chain plan. I also
Mm,
focus on corporate strategy. Actually, just being able to strategize and build programs. If you ask me what am I good at and what I love doing, it's going in, understanding what the business needs, and building a program around that as
mm.
related to DE&I, supplier diversity, and community initiatives. So those are my strengths. That is what my business focused on, and also educating MBEs to get ready for their next.
I love it. I love it. So, on behalf of a lot of minority founders, and this is going to be something that certainly resonates with you, I just want to send the message that as you continue to do the work that you do, because it's in your wheelhouse, and you, align with client partners and organizational leaders that are in the space of supplier diversity and supply chain. One of the things that I know are such, a common backdoor conversation of frustration is that please, please, please encourage those organizations to uncomplicate their RFP processes, because a lot of these minority vendors, they're wearing the hats of the CFO, the CMO, the executor, all the things, and they don't have the bandwidth to really be able to go through such an arduous process in order to even be in the consideration set, because they're servicing existing client needs. And so I'm going to take one for the team, and I'm just going to say that is something I know that we want all of those organizations to be cognizant of. And so, um, yeah. Okay, so we have like 4 minutes left, and I do have one final question that I want to give you the final moments just to close this out, Priscilla, in whatever way that feels comfortable for you. If there's something that I haven't asked you about that you have a lot of energy for and you want to socialize, I want to give you that chance to do so. But my final question before that closing is, you also talk a lot and advocate a lot for corporations, organizations to include family in their DEI initiatives, and you feel like that is something that really helps to shape the organizational culture. So I would love for you to share your thoughts around why that's important, and then close us out, please, friend.
Sure will. Well, I wanted to just kind of briefly touch on that. It's so important that corporations invest
Mhm,
in your
mhm.
people. And a lot of times when it comes to investing in your people, we have to remember that the family, the faith, all that makes up that person. That person wants to
Yeah,
be whole on the job. And everyone deserves a fair chance, no matter their race, their color, or their religion. People want to feel valued, they want to feel understood and accepted in the workplace. We all come with different perspectives, different viewpoints, but one thing that we all have in common was that we want to feel appreciated, and we want to feel like we're at a place that belongs. So I encourage corporations to continue to have those courageous conversations,
mhm,
continue to build ERG groups, continue
yeah,
to recognize Affinity Month. It may not mean nothing to one as someone's peer, but it may mean something to someone else. And so
yeah.
just being able to acknowledge that, engage in Dr. Nika's LinkedIn courses, learn more about unconscious bias, stereotypes,
Mhm,
the different types
mhm.
of diversity, because that's what's going to help you relate to your employees. That's
Yeah,
kind of what helped tie the line together. Have more events that are just centered not just on the employee, but perhaps their family, So you can
Yeah.
build those intentional relationships. Why do I say all of this? Because most people that are even watching right now, they spend a large part of their day at work.
Hmm.
At work. They spend a
Yeah.
large part of their time at work, helping the company grow, adding their skill set so they can work for a great organization. And obviously, they believe in your organizations, which is why you should invest. And lastly, I would just say, Dr. Nika, she's an awesome woman. She's making a difference.
Thank
And
you,
I love the
friend.
fact I said she's an awesome woman, is what I said. And she's making a difference in these intentional conversations. She's built a platform that is to be admired. So continue to share this platform with others, because you're touching lives, you're making a difference. And as far as the holidays, just remember the reason for the season. Take some time, get healthy, spend time on understanding what season that you're in. And from my family to your family, happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you. Thank you so much, Priscilla. I really have enjoyed reconnecting with you today in this conversation. I've enjoyed sharing you with our podcast community. And I certainly wish you and your family happy holidays as well. We have shared into our chat your LinkedIn as well as your website, diversityexchange.org. Do hope that you all will connect with Priscilla. And again, wishing you a safe, healthy, peaceful holiday season. We'll see you all the first of the year. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.